If you walked into a coffee shop, say, 20 years ago, and told someone you spent your morning scrolling through the highlights of a viral influencer.
Oh, they would have thought you were speaking a completely foreign language.
Right. Or, maybe describing some kind of strange medical condition.
Honestly, yeah. They'd probably recommend you see a doctor immediately. It sounds like a pretty severe diagnosis.
It really does. But today, that sentence is just a standard Tuesday. The landscape of the English language has shifted incredibly fast. And that brings us to our mission for you today in this deep dive.
Exactly. Because if you are learning English, mastering this specific language can sometimes feel like trying to hit a moving target,
Oh, for sure. The words people actually use to describe their daily lives, they often aren't found in traditional textbooks.
Right, because textbooks tend to focus on formal permanence. So you'll learn the words for static objects, like an apple, a library, a bicycle. But to truly connect with native English speakers today, you have to understand the dynamic, evolving language that they use to navigate their digital connections.
Which is exactly why we are going to be your supportive guides on this journey today. We're going to speak at a moderate, clear pace.
Yes, we are.
And together, we are going to break down essential English social media vocabulary. We're talking about the words that explain how we interact with our screens and, more importantly, how we interact with each other.
And the big picture of where these words actually come from is absolutely fascinating. Almost all of the terms we'll discuss today began their lives as highly informal internet slang.
Right, just niche slang.
Exactly. But they stabilized and integrated into the culture so rapidly that they're now considered standard everyday English. You will hear these exact words in a casual chat with a friend, inside a professional marketing meeting, or even during an academic lecture.
Yeah, they're everywhere. So for you listening, navigating this vocabulary isn't just about, memorizing a list of definitions from a dictionary.
Not at all.
It's about learning a completely new cultural operating system. It's really the key to understanding how native speakers view their own digital lives, like how they balance the constant consumption of information with that ongoing tension between human connection and digital overload.
Yeah, that tension is so real. And to understand that operating system, we need to start with the foundational actions, the everyday habits that anchor us in the digital world.
The basics.
Right. And the most basic fundamental action of the modern internet requires a very specific verb in English, to scroll through.
Let's actually think about the physical history of that word for a second.
Yeah.
Because scrolling didn't start with smartphones.
No, not at all. Originally, a scroll was a physical roll of parchment or papyrus.
Right, like an ancient text.
Exactly. To read it, you had to manually unroll it. Then, when early computers came along, scrolling meant using a keyboard to move lines of green text up or down on a clunky monitor.
Oh, I remember those.
Right. But the introduction of the touchscreen changed the physical reality of the word entirely. Now, scrolling is almost exclusively a casual, repetitive flick of the thumb.
Yeah, just a flick. And it implies a completely different level of attention now. You aren't studying the screen. You are just kind of passing your eyes over it.
Exactly.
Which is why I always think of scrolling through as the modern digital equivalent of window shopping.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Right. Like when you walk down a busy street, you casually look at all the displays in the store windows, but you rarely commit to walking inside and actually buying anything.
That is a perfect analogy. You're looking at the digital displays, but you aren't committing to the content. And because it requires so little effort, the word has expanded way beyond social media apps.
Yeah, people use it for everything now.
They do. A native speaker will routinely say something like, I spent an hour scrolling through my email inbox, or I was just scrolling through the news. It just denotes passive consumption.
And, that passive consumption leads us to a very specific type of digital identity. Because humans naturally categorize behavior, native speakers have actually developed a common archetype for this kind of user, the silent scroller.
Right, the silent scroller. This is someone who actively consumes content on a platform. So they're always looking, always window shopping.
But they don't buy anything.
Exactly. They rarely, if ever, contribute their own thoughts, leave a comment, or share an image.
Wait, isn't that essentially just a rebrand of a lurker? Like, why did we need a completely new word for it?
That's a great question.
Because lurker was the original slang for someone who just watched the internet without participating. But lurker sounds incredibly creepy, like someone hiding in the bushes outside your house.
Yeah, and that is precisely why the language had to adapt. because lurker comes from the early days of internet message boards, which was a time when the internet was often viewed as this somewhat secretive underground place.
Right, it had a different vibe.
It did. So having someone lurk felt invasive. But today, social media is this public, noisy, overcrowded room. So silent scroller removes that negative, creepy judgment.
Ah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it describes an almost peaceful, meditative state of observation. You aren't lurking in the shadows. You're just quietly scrolling past the noise.
Which explains why admitting you are a silent scroller is actually such a powerful conversational tool. Like if you are at a party and you want to start a conversation in English, admitting this behavior is a highly effective way to bond with native speakers.
It really is, because it's deeply relatable. The pressure to constantly perform online is so high right now. So acknowledging that you opt out of that performance is a great way to build rapport.
Yeah, it takes the pressure off.
Completely. Saying something like, I have an account, but I'm basically just a silent scroller. I like to see what my friends are doing, but I never share anything myself. That shows you understand the culture without taking yourself or the internet too seriously.
It totally takes the pressure off the interaction. But of course, if scrolling is passive consumption, we kind of have to talk about the opposing action, the act of creation.
Right. And for that, we use the verb to post. To post means to publish a piece of content like text, an image, a video online for a public audience to see.
And this sets up a very clean dichotomy for any natural English conversation. It divides the digital world into the poster and the observer.
It really does.
It gives you an immediate framework to describe human behavior. Someone might tell you, my sister posts a new video almost every day, but I haven't posted a single photo since last year.
Exactly. It establishes your baseline identity. Like, are you consuming or are you creating?
Right. But there is a massive leap between personal, everyday habits and what happens when those personal creations actually reach a global audience. When millions of people suddenly look at a single post, we stop talking about individual choices.
Yeah, we move into the realm of global phenomena.
Yeah.
And the vocabulary shifts to reflect that massive scale. So the most critical phrase to understand at this macro level is to go viral.
I have always found the history and the grammar around going viral to be absolutely fascinating. I mean, we took a clinical biological term, a virus, an infection spreading rapidly through a population, and we just turned it into a digital achievement.
It is wild. But the linguistic leap from biology to technology actually makes perfect sense when you look at the mechanics of the internet.
How so?
Well, by definition, when a piece of content goes viral, it spreads rapidly across networks. It's being shared and viewed by hundreds of thousands or millions of people in a super condensed time frame. It literally mimics a biological outbreak.
It totally does. But the grammar native speakers use to describe this is so incredibly specific. Going viral is almost always discussed as a force of nature. It is something that happens to a piece of content entirely by accident. You don't usually hear someone say, I am going to make this viral. They say, it went viral. It's treated as this totally unpredictable event.
And that grammatical passivity is key. You cannot reliably engineer a viral moment any more than you can engineer a digital contagion or, say, a stadium wave.
Oh, a stadium wave is a great way to picture it.
Right. Think of an 80,000 person stadium. One person stands up and throws their hands in the air, and suddenly the entire arena is doing the wave. It isn't coordinated, it just catches on.
It just happens.
Exactly. And because it is completely unpredictable, it remains a source of ongoing fascination in everyday conversation. Like, someone might say she posted a funny video of her cat, and it just went viral overnight.
Which naturally brings us to the people who try to start that stadium wave for a living, the influencers.
Ah, yes, influencers.
Yeah.
An influencer is a person with a large online following who creates content professionally. And crucially, they possess the power to affect the purchasing decisions of their audience.
How did we move from calling famous people celebrities to calling them influencers? Because a celebrity is someone who is celebrated. There's an admiration there. But the term influencer sounds almost clinical.
It does.
It implies their primary utility is just to change my behavior or sell me a product.
Well, that is the exact cultural shift the word represents. A celebrity is famous for a specific talent, like acting, singing, sports. But an influencer is famous for their lifestyle and their ability to market that lifestyle.
Right.
And this is exactly why native English speakers use the word with a built-in layer of skepticism.
Yeah, there is always that underlying question, are they genuine or is this just a financial transaction?
Exactly. When native speakers discuss influencers, it is rarely just blind admiration. It's this complex mix of respecting their business savvy, but also questioning their authenticity.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You'll often hear someone say something like, I follow a few fitness influencers for workout ideas, but I never know if their product recommendations are genuine, or if they're just being paid by the supplement company. The word influencer immediately introduces a slightly critical tone.
And that critical tone is really the perfect way to examine the dark side of this massive digital scale. Because when we are constantly exposed to millions of people perfectly curating their lives or constantly trying to sell us products, how does that actually affect the person just sitting on their couch?
Well, it creates a profound psychological strain. And English has actually developed highly specific vocabulary to articulate that critique. When discussing the negative impact of technology on our mental focus and our time management, the absolute go-to word is distraction.
Now, a distraction at its core is really just a thing that prevents someone from giving full attention to something else. Like a loud noise outside your window is a distraction.
True. But in the context of digital technology, the word carries a much heavier weight. It's not just about a temporary lapse in focus anymore. When native speakers talk about their phones as a distraction, they are articulating a systemic loss of control over their time.
Yeah, they aren't just losing their train of thought. They are losing hours of their day.
Precisely. It is a mature, very self-aware critique of the technology. So a colleague at work might tell you, I had to delete the app from my phone entirely because it became too much of a distraction during the workday.
Right. But there is another phrase in this critical vocabulary that I think is even more powerful for understanding the modern mindset, and that is the concept of the highlights, or the highlight reel.
Yes. By traditional definition, the highlights are the best, most exciting, or most successful parts of a sports game or an event. But online, this phrase has been entirely repurposed to describe the curated, highly selective nature of digital self-presentation.
Let me actually give you a relatable scenario to show why this phrase is so necessary. So imagine it is a Tuesday morning, it's pouring rain, you burned your toast for breakfast, you didn't sleep well, and you're rushing to catch a crowded bus.
A terrible morning.
Right. That is the messy reality of everyday life. But then you pull out your phone, you scroll through your feed, and all you see are photos of your friends lounging on a sunny beach, celebrating a promotion, or eating a Michelin star meal.
And that contrast is exactly what the phrase addresses. It acts as a linguistic defense mechanism.
Yeah, it reminds you that you are comparing your behind-the-scenes reality to everyone else's opening night. You basically have to actively warn yourself not to compare your rainy Tuesday to their highlights.
It acknowledges that social media is an illusion. People only post their victories. They rarely post their burned toast.
So true. So for an English learner, is using the term the highlights essentially the ultimate linguistic shortcut for showing emotional intelligence? Like if you use that phrase, do native speakers instantly recognize that you truly understand the culture?
Absolutely they do. If a friend is feeling down about their life after looking at social media and you say, listen, you can't compare your life to what you see online, you're comparing your everyday reality to everyone else's highlights. If you say that, you will sound incredibly fluent.
That's great advice.
Yeah, it's a fixed expression that instantly signals your deep comprehension of the modern digital dilemma.
Well, we have unpacked some fantastic vocabulary today. We have scroll through, silent scroller, post, go viral, influencers, distraction, and the highlights.
The very solid list.
But having the vocabulary is really only half the battle. How do you actually use these words seamlessly in a real-world English conversation without, freezing up or losing your train of thought?
This is where understanding the cultural rhythm of the conversation becomes so crucial. Native speakers naturally unfold discussions about social media in a very predictable progression. We can call it the three-stage framework.
A conversational map. I love this. This is exactly what language learners need to avoid just throwing random vocabulary words at a wall and hoping they stick.
Exactly. A map gives you a clear beginning, middle, and end. The conversation almost always moves from the micro, the macro, and finally to an evaluation. So let's break down stage one, the micro level, which focuses on personal habits.
Right. When the topic of social media first comes up, you always begin by discussing yourself. You establish your personal digital identity.
You discuss which platforms you use and whether you are primarily a creator or a consumer. And this is where you deploy our first set of words.
So you might start the conversation by saying something like, I usually just scroll through the feed before bed, or I am definitely a silent scroller these days. I rarely post anything myself.
Perfect. And once you have established that personal baseline, the conversation naturally expands outward into stage 2, the macro level.
This is where you zoom out.
Yeah.
You stop talking about yourself and you start talking about the global phenomena we discussed. You analyze the digital weather together.
You reflect on internet culture, fame, and the massive scale of content. So the language cues here are global words. You might say, did you see that travel influencer who went viral last week? Or it is crazy how fast a completely random video can go viral.
Yeah, you're just bonding over the unpredictability of the internet. But a good conversation can't just end on a random observation. It needs a resolution. Which brings us to stage 3, the evaluative conclusion.
This is where you weigh the benefits against the drawbacks. You use your critical vocabulary to share a balanced opinion on the effects of all this technology.
Right. This is where you wrap up the chat by saying something like, I find the whole platform to be such a distraction lately, or I have to remind myself that everything online is just the highlights anyway.
So let's run through a quick hypothetical dialogue to show how seamlessly this flows in real life. Imagine someone asks if you saw a specific video. You respond with stage 1. No, I try not to open the app too often. I'm mostly just a silent scroller.
Then you move to stage 2. But I did see that one fitness influencer complaining about how hard it is to go viral now.
And then you finish with stage 3. Honestly, I take it all with a grain of salt. The whole thing is such a distraction, and they only ever show you the highlights of their lives anyway.
That is a complete, emotionally intelligent story about the digital world, told entirely through the framework. It gives you, the learner, a structured path to follow so you never feel lost in the conversation. Personal habits first, global trends second, philosophical conclusion third.
And if you follow that map and utilize the vocabulary we explored today, you will sound incredibly natural and insightful. You are proving that you read the culture, not just the dictionary.
And that is a massive achievement.
Yeah.
Navigating this vocabulary isn't just about learning English grammar. It is about grasping the nuanced ways humans are trying to stay connected in a really overwhelming digital age.
Exactly.
You now have the linguistic tools to decode these conversations in any coffee shop or boardroom.
It really opens up an entirely new level of fluency.
Well, before we let you go, we want to leave you with a final thought. A little something for you to explore on your own, considering how fast this language actually evolves. We talked about how the physical reality of the word scroll changed from a piece of papyrus to a flick of the thumb.
Yeah, the language always bends to accommodate the technology.
Right. So what do you think will happen to the English language when the next massive wave of technology arrives? Like when we transition into fully immersive virtual reality or start communicating through advanced AI neural interfaces, will today's standard digital vocabulary words like scrolling and posting simply become tomorrow's outdated slang?
It's a great question. Like, will we still use the word viral when the network is entirely inside a virtual headset? The language will have to shift again to match whatever our new physical reality becomes.
It is a fascinating cycle. The vocabulary of connection is never truly fixed. It is always being rewritten by the people using it. You just have to make sure you are out there in the world listening to the words people are actually speaking right now. Until next time, keep listening, keep practicing, and keep diving deep.